Alrighty, everyone. So today we're going to have a quick workshop on GitHub in case you guys wanted to learn about how GitHub works so that you can use it for the hack challenge. So alrighty, let's get started. So the first thing is, what is GitHub? So there's one little differentiation we should make here between GitHub and Git. So typically, when people say GitHub, they're referring to both GitHub and Git, but GitHub itself is where the code is hosted. So that's some web-based code hosting platform, which is GitHub. So if I go to github.com, I'll see a lot of repos, which we'll talk more about, like this, where you can see all of the code, and you can download the code and look at like the branch system they have set up and everything, since it is fully integrated with Git. And now, what is Git? Git is a version control system. So a version control system is basically just a way that we can work on code with collaboration and different versions in an organized way. So if maybe I was working on some code and then all of a sudden, oh no, we messed up, we need to revert back, that could be a little bit complicated. But version control system allows you to go back to the previous version, allows you to be working on one file separately from another person who's working on a different file, all in the same project, and optimizations on working on a big code base like that. They also allow, this is more of a GitHub thing, but they also have some features like issues where you can put in enhancements that you want to make to your code later on, or maybe if there's a current bug, things like that can go under the issues tab. So that way you can assign it to someone who's working on the repo so that that's like their next task that they'll work on, or maybe that's what they're currently working on, whatever your workflow is. Okay, now that was what is GitHub. Why is GitHub? So, right, why would we use GitHub? So primarily, there's a lot of organization that we get from version control systems. GitHub also has some unique features where you can create organizations, like AppDev is an example of a GitHub organization. DTI is also going to be another example of a GitHub organization where you can see all of the different repos, and a repo is basically like a project, where you can see all of the repos, and different people can contribute to different repos. So in this example here, we see AppDev, and we can see that under the AppDev, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, many repos, a total of 78. So each repo corresponds to something like an app. So we have like the Ithaca Transit iOS, the Ithaca Transit backend, and things like that. And another reason you could use GitHub, speaking specifically to members of the, or students in general, is to use it as a portfolio. So this is a great place to host all of your code, where it's very clear and concise, and you can look at the code and comment on code and things like that. And the portfolio is a nice way to sort of present your code to people. So typically that takes the form of linking your profile and pinning certain repos that you want to highlight to people who click on your portfolio or profile. And under each repo, you can put a little README where you can talk about it as if you're talking to like a recruiter. So you can present yourself in the best light, or you could not. That's up to you. And then collaboration. Of course, with the version control system that comes with Git, of course, we're going to be getting a lot of really nice collaboration features. And this version control system that I'm referring to, Git, is something that you download, but GitHub is like a website. So we'll talk more about that in just a moment. So that is why is GitHub. Now, where is GitHub? So github.com is the short answer. But Git, which remember is not GitHub, but is integrated with GitHub, is something that you would download. So they have downloads for Windows, downloads for Mac, downloads for Linux, and just go and search on Google, download Git, and that link will be immediately what you're looking for, as long as it's for the right platform. So where can I use Git? I can use Git in many different places. I could use it in the terminal, and that's probably the safest place to use it. A lot of purists will only ever use it in the terminal and refuse to use it anywhere else. But it's been integrated into a lot of popular text editors and IDEs like VS Code, Android Studio, Xcode, and Atom, and basically every IDE or every text editor. Well, maybe not every text editor, but definitely every IDE. It's because it's such a pivotal feature that basically every developer needs. So we'll demo how to run through the terminal, how to run through the VS Code GUI that they have for dealing with that, and Android Studio, and Kevin will do a brief Xcode demo as well. Okay, now how is GitHub? GitHub is good. Thank you for asking. So there are many ways to use GitHub. Of course, collaboration is the main thing that we're stressing here for something like the Hack Challenge, but let's talk about some of the commands that you can do, some of the features that comes with Git and GitHub. So branches. So what a branch is basically the main way that we can sort of break apart the working on one big code base amongst different people. So if I'm, let's say, working on a file that, let's say I'm working on file A, and then someone else is going to be working on file B inside of our code base, I would work on file A, and then when I'm done, I'm not going to put my changes directly onto the project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's known as a branch, sort of like a branch from the project. And then if the branch looks good, people test the branch gets approved, then we move that branch into the main project. So now I'm going to say what I just said, but applying the GitHub terminology. So I'm going to be working on a branch, and when I get someone to approve my request to merge into the main branch, then I create a pull request. So let's break that down a little bit. So branches is going to be what you're working on, and the main branch is the main project. And you create branches off of the main branch. And then when the branch looks good and it's ready to grow, you create a pull request and you request that someone reviews your pull request. So if I'm looking at this here, this is an example of a pull request where I was making some changes to Eatery, and I detailed those changes, and I requested 2 members of the Android subteam to review this, and then if they approve it, then I get to merge it into main, and then I can delete my branch. So I've now moved it into the main project, and now I can delete the branch, and now everyone else will have the new code as part of their main branch. Okay, so that's basically one workflow, and this is typically the workflow you'll find at any company. AppDev uses this workflow. DTI, I'm sure, uses this workflow. And so this is done because it's safer. This is a safe way to work on development. And the other thing is it's typically recommended that we work in this sort of fashion because it avoids what's known as merge conflicts. So what a merge conflict is once again, if I was working on file A and someone was working on file B, and we both made concurrent changes, and now I'm trying to merge after the other person merged, then there's some conflicts about, well, is the code what person A is saying or what person B was saying? Then that is known as a merge conflict that you have to resolve. So before you merge into the main branch, you have to resolve merge conflicts. So that usually just means, should I accept the incoming change, what I'm trying to push in? Should I accept the old change, like what was there before? and basically just determining what the current state of the code should be. And that's one of the beautiful things about working on branches is you don't have to worry about that too much, and you can avoid a lot of issues with that. And so this is basically how the workflow works. But here's the thing. If you're working on a personal project and you're the only person who's working on this repo, then maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to be creating PRs, which stands for pull request. Maybe it doesn't make sense to be creating pull requests if you're going to be the only person looking at it. So in that case, maybe merging directly to main would make sense. This is typically discouraged, but once again, if it's just you working on the repo, it's probably fine. Okay, now let's talk about something else that you can do with repos, is cloning. So let's say your partner just started the code and started working on the code, and you still don't have the code on your machine. So how do you bring what they posted onto GitHub onto your machine? This is known as cloning the repo. So if you go back to this image over here, you can, one more. You can see there's a little button right here that says code. If you click on this, you'll get a link as well as an option to download the zip file. Don't download the zip file, but copy the link, and we would run a command called git clone and then type in the link. And that's how you clone a repo, and it'll clone the repo wherever you are in that file space. And then now you have whatever's in the repo on your machine. And you can now do stuff like push and pull to the repo, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So now let's talk about what it means to check out. So checking out is basically how you move from one branch to another. So if I want to so let's say person A just pushed some changes onto main. So my code won't be automatically updated until I pull from the main branch. But let's say I wasn't on the main branch. What I need to do is I need to check out the main branch, meaning I'm going to leave the branch I'm currently on and move to the main branch. So now my code will be whatever the main branch is. And now that I'm on the main branch, I want to get the most recent version of it. So I'm going to pull. And I'll talk a little bit more about pulling if it's not clear, but follow your intuition on push and pull. They follow by intuition. And so that's what checking out is. And on top of that, I could also check out to a new branch. When I'm creating a new branch, I'll automatically check out that branch. And it'll be based off of whatever code I have on my machine at that moment in time. So basically, checking out is how we move from one branch to another. And just know that when you check out, it does not automatically update your code. You still have to pull. So if I checked out main, it doesn't mean I have the most recent version of the main branch. I still have to pull from main. Okay? So now let's talk about the commands we can do with Git. Pushing and pulling. So this is going to be your bread and butter with GitHub. This is typically what you're going to be doing. And committing is going to be one of the steps we take before pushing. So let's talk about the workflow. So let's say I want to work on a new feature. The first thing I should do is make sure that I'm checked out on the right branch, whatever branch you want to work on. Then I want to pull, which means getting whatever the most recent version of it is. I want to pull whatever is on that branch. That will update your machine so that the code you have is the most accurate. Okay, then let's say you write your code and you finish the feature. Before you push, you're going to want to commit your changes. So committing is basically like putting it on a queue so I can commit multiple things. So maybe I finished feature 1, I commit it. Then I say before I push, I want to work on another feature because I want both of these features to ship together as one PR or something like that for whatever reason. So then I work on feature 2 and then I commit it. Now I have 2 things that I've committed. So when I push to the repo, which means when I'm putting the code onto the whatever branch I'm working on, then both of the commits will be pushed to the whatever branch I was working on. So that's the basic workflow of pushing, pulling, and committing. So typically, we will pull first, make sure we have the most recent version, so that way we're not building off of old code, which can cause some issues. Then we commit the changes that we make as we're making those changes, and then we push the changes that we've committed to that branch. Okay, now let's talk about fetching. So what fetching is how we can get the most recent versions of the branches. So if your friend just made a new branch and you're not seeing that the branch is showing up, you would fetch. It's basically like refreshing to see that you're getting all of the branches. Okay, and then the last thing is stashing. So stashing is, let's say I was working on something, but now I want to work on something else on a new branch, and I don't want to necessarily throw it away. I can stash the changes to come back to later. Stashing can be a little bit complicated. I would not recommend it for the workflows for the hack challenge, but if you would like to do that, it is a feature and it's supported, so by all means. So this was sort of a lengthy discussion on how we use Git in GitHub. So how is GitHub? Okay, and then the last question is, who is GitHub? And the answer is you all, when you're going to be using it for the hack challenge, because we all need to have repos and everything so that we can all work on it. And not just you in the hack challenge if you haven't worked on it before, but this is a skill you will take with you undoubtedly through the rest of your computer science career. Just because Git is like the gold standard for version control systems used by companies and everything. And so with that, we're going to now move on to a demo of the workflow in the terminal, VS Code, Android Studio, and Xcode for everybody, backend Android, and so forth. So here we go. Okay, and before we start using anything, make sure you follow the instructions that you can find online for installing Git. Here's how to install it on Linux, on Mac, and then on Windows, there's an installer. So make sure that you install Git so that you can use Git to its fullest potential, and you don't have to run into this again. Alrighty. Okay, now let's go over how to use GitHub in the terminal. So the most important thing is to make sure that you have Git installed, of course, for all of the case scenarios. You should have Git installed, and then I should navigate to the folder in which my repo is in. So for me, this is right here, and what I can do is I could say, if I had some change, I could say git add and then dot. So this is a pretty common thing. So what this is saying this entire directory, that's what the dot here is referring to, saying this entire directory I want to add to changes that I'm later going to commit. And if instead of the entire directory that I'm in, I wanted to add a specific file, I could very easily just mention the name of the file. I don't know what files are in here, but I could just say like file name.html, for example. So I could add some file, but let's say I just want to add the whole thing. Then I want to, after adding it, I want to commit it. So take notice of something. I can't just say git commit. I also have to say -m, which is the message flag, because you want to have a message for your commit. So this is your commit message. I could say new feature completed. Okay. And now it just committed my changes, and you could see that the GUI updated automatically. And then I could also push. I could push the changes to whatever branch that I'm on as well. I'm not actually going to push, but I could just hit enter, and then it would push now to the repo. If you want to pull, make sure, of course, that you're in the right directory where your repo is, and say git pull. And that would automatically update your project. And so I could pull, okay? Or actually, I'm not on the right branch. So now if I want to, but git pull is the command that you would use. If you want to clone, you would say git clone, and then the URL that you need to clone it, and I believe that should go in quotes. So HTTPS / and so forth. Just paste it from the GitHub repo online. So you would just say git clone and then that. And what else? I could also say git checkout and some branch name. So I don't know, I don't actually have some branch that I want to check out, but if I want to check out some new branch, I would say git branch name. And of course, if you want to stash, git stash. So this is the basic workflow that you need to get working with Git in the terminal. And Git in the terminal can accomplish everything that the GUI can do and is typically much more reliable. A lot of the times, if you have some Git issues that you need to debug, then this is what you will end up using. Okay, now let's take a look at how to use the GitHub GUI in VS Code. So in VS Code, I have the option to check out a new branch right here. So I have only the master branch right now, but if I had other branches, I could click on that branch. And if I wanted to create a new branch right here, I could create a branch and then type in whatever the branch name is. So I could say, maybe I was working on a new feature. I could say Adam / new feature, since this is the person who's working on it. And this is a summary of, at a glance of what I'm doing here, but I'm not actually going to do that. So, okay, let's say I just made some change, and I now want to commit that change. What I could do is over here, you'll see the GitHub little icon for version control system. I don't believe you need to, but you might need to download an extension. Extensions can be found here, and you could just search for GitHub, but I don't believe you need to install any extensions. I'm pretty sure it's built into VS Code. But if you ever want any new features dealing with GitHub or really anything else for VS Code, extensions is a great thing. So, okay, I've just made some change. Now I want to stage the change first. So this is basically like putting it onto the thing that I want to put out. Maybe like if I was making some changes here and there and here and there, but this is a change that I actually want to take place. So I could stage the change of this file specifically, or I could stage the change of all of the files if I had multiple files here. So, and I also have the option to open the file and to discard changes. So if I said that change I made, let's discard it. I'm not interested in it anymore. And I can also see the working tree if I click on this M here. I can see exactly what changed. So let's say I wanted to stage these changes. So now it's under the staged changes. And now if I want to commit the staged changes, I write a little commit message. I could say new feature. And then I could commit it. And now that it's committed, if I want to pull, I go over here and I go to pull. And this is basically what you would do if you wanted to sort of do some change. So now, what if I wanted to pull? So right here, I have the pull option. So once again, if I was over here in my file pane, I'm going to go to the VCS, version control system pane, or it's called source control in VS Code. And I'm going to pull from whatever branch that I'm on. And it says there's no information. It's because the branch I'm on is not actually, I think the branch is, or this is a deleted repo, but this is how you would pull. And if I wanted to check out a new branch, I would go here. And this is the basic workflow that you're going to be working through. They also have other options like fetch if I want to get the latest branches. I could also clone a repo if I wanted to. And if I wanted to clone, I could just type in the URL that I'd gotten from GitHub. And that's basically how we would use the version control system in VS Code. Okay, here's going to be a quick demo of using GitHub in Android Studio. So typically this is where we set it up right here in VCS, which stands for Version Control System. And so here you can find your commit command. You can find the update project, which is just pulling, and some more options in Git. And there's typically, before you can use this, it'll ask you to sign in to Git. So make sure you have an account. And here we have a clone option if you want to clone a repo. So if I have some link to some repo right here, if I click clone, right here I have a URL that I can insert, and I can put the insert of the, I can insert the URL of the repo, and it'll clone it for me. And you can see right here, this is because I have my account already set up with GitHub. I see all of my repos here. So I have a project open, and let's run through a little bit of a workflow. So first, if I want to check out a new branch, right here, I have this little branch system here. So I'm currently on the master branch, also known as main branch. And I could stay on this branch if I wanted to, but since we typically don't do everything on the main branch, especially in app dev, we work on different branches. What I'd do if I was working on a new feature is I would say new branch. And then it would ask me what the name of the branch I want to make is. And typically, this is sort of just because it's idiomatic, but what we'll do is we'll say the name of the person who's working on the branch / what it is that they're doing. So maybe if I was doing some small update, I would say Adam / small update. And this would be the branch that I'm making. And I'm not going to actually create the branch, but that's how I would create a branch. And if you want to check out a new branch, you just select one of these branches. And this will populate after you sign in. So then, once I do that, we have these shortcuts, which you can also find right here under VCS. But this is basically the commit button. And so here's where you commit. And under the commit message, I would just summarize the changes that I've made. And then, so I don't have any actual changes here. So if I added this change, then what I could do is, instead of just committing, I could also, well, hold on. Yeah, typically, I would see an option to commit and push, but like I said, I don't actually have any changes. Let me just do a really quick change. Whoops. I don't know why that. Android Studio is not cooperating. Okay, well, I have some change now. So let's go ahead and try to commit this change. And now I have the option to commit and push the change. And I can see the change that has been made right here. This else has been turned into an else if false, which you should never do. I'm sort of just doing this for dummy code. And then I could have my commit message is saying I did something dumb. Okay, and then I could just commit it if I wanted to, or I could commit and push to the master branch, which I should probably not do. So that's basically how we would be able to push. And now if I want to pull, I could pull, and let's see what happens. It'll hopefully make the change. Yeah, and take notice of something. When I pulled, it did not get rid of this change. Because imagine you want to pull the most recent version, but you are already working on something and you don't want to have to throw it away. It's basically a non-destructive way of bringing in the new changes, so long as they don't interfere. Though, if whatever I had interfered, then it would be different. So I can just go ahead and undo that, and there we go. So this is how I pull. and this is how I can commit and push. And this was a very basic demo of how to use GitHub and Android Studio. And last but not least, here is Kevin going over a quick demo of how to use the Xcode GitHub GUI.